Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to chapter 41. We are discussing animal nutrition. We have just followed the path of food from the moment it is eaten, goes into the oral cavity, down the esophagus into the stomach, and the churning that goes on in the stomach. The next thing that food is going to do is move into the small intestine. So, most people's intestines are several meters long. That means it is very, very long. 6 meters is 18 feet. So these are very long, and that length of them helps give it plenty of surface area to be able to finish digesting our food, but also be able to absorb our nutrients from our food. The small intestine is the longest compartment of the alimentary canal. But it's called small because it has a smaller diameter than the large intestine. So the small intestine has a smaller diameter. It's a smaller size of the tube, even though the tube is longer than the large intestine. And the small intestine is divided into different sections. The first 25 centimeters is the duodenum. So I want you to pay attention to how we say that name, the duodenum. In the duodenum, the chyme from the stomach is going to come in, and it's going to mix with digestive juices that have been created by the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, and secretions from the intestinal wall. And within the duodenum is where most of the remaining digestion of your food is going to take place. In this table, you can see how in the small intestine, we have pancreatic amylases that are going to be breaking down our carbohydrates down to disaccharides. We have trypsin and chymotrypsin that are going to be digesting our proteins. We have nucleases that are going to be breaking down DNA and RNA that you've digested, that you've eaten, and pancreatic lipase that is going to be breaking down the fats. Hormones from the stomach and the duodenum both are going to be able to control the digestive secretion into the alimentary canal. We'll talk a little bit more about hormones at the end of this chapter, but secretin is made by the duodenum. Then also, one thing that's important here is in the stomach, things are very acidic, and we don't want that acidity going throughout the rest of the body and ruining the body. So the pancreas makes bicarbonate. Bicarbonate neutralizes the pH of the chyme, so now we have a more neutral substance going through the lumen of the small intestines. Trypsin and chymotrypsin are proteases that are made from the pancreas that are going to be breaking down. Here you can see they're going to be breaking down your proteins. And trypsin and chymotrypsin function a lot like in the stomach where you have, let me start this again. So trypsin and chymotrypsin are going to act a lot like in the stomach where you have pepsin being made from pepsinogen. We see the same kind of thing with trypsin and chymotrypsin, that they're being made in the pancreas, but it's not until they are getting into the lumen of the small intestine that they get activated and start breaking down proteins. Then there are also other digestive surfaces that are on the intestinal wall, bound to that apical surface inside the intestinal wall. Fats, if you remember, fats are hydrophobic. They're not water soluble, so they're not going to be easily digested by enzymes within the small intestines. They're going to form these big clumps. Like if you think of if you are dropping candle wax into a cup of water, it's going to make clumps. Those fats are going to make that same kind of clumps here. So fat digestion is going to be facilitated by bile salts. So bile salts are going to be able to take those clumps of fats and emulsify it. They're going to break it down and kind of liquefy it. Bile salts are also part of bile, which is made by the liver. Bile is stored and concentrated in the gallbladder. And the pigments of bile, they're kind of green because that is a color that we've gotten from recycling our blood. Then from the duodenum, our food is pretty much digested at this point. The food is going to move into the jejunum and the ilium by peristalsis. I hope you remember that word, peristalsis. If you don't, stop and look it up. And within the jejunum and the ilium, we're going to have a lot of absorption of our food. And you can even see if you look here at the surface of your intestines that it's not totally smooth. It's got kind of all these little bumpiness to it. So that helps it be able to absorb more. It has more surface area, so it's able to absorb more nutrients from your food. And then if you even zoomed in to look at a cell, you would see that a cell had little finger-like tops to it. These are called villi, and those villi also have little projections called microvilli. So we have folds, and then within them we have folds, and within them we have even more folds. All of those folds are there to increase that surface area of our small intestines to be able to have the most amount of nutrient absorption that we can. There's passive and active absorption in the small intestines. Passive absorption would include the simple sugars that are being going through facilitated diffusion. Active absorption would be most of the nutrients. The nutrients are carried to capillaries. The capillaries carry blood to small vessels, and they're carried into a larger vein called the hepatic portal vein. So your food has been absorbed here, and then it is going to be taken to 3 smaller veins to the hepatic portal vein. The hepatic portal vein is going to take it to the liver to be processed, and then your blood will be sent throughout all your body so that your body is getting all the nutrients that it needs. The blood leaving the liver is going to be different from the blood entering the liver, which allows the liver to regulate how nutrients are being distributed and also to make sure the toxins are being removed from the blood. Okay, so which of these organs is incorrectly paired with its function? From the video we just had or right now that you're watching and the video that you watched before this. Stomach, does the stomach do protein digestion? Does the oral cavity do starch digestion? Does the large intestine produce bile? Does the small intestine absorb nutrients? Does the pancreas does the pancreas produce enzymes? Which of those is incorrect? Okay, I'm going to give you a minute. Make sure you've got your answer. And let's watch this video about how nutrients are being transported through the membranes.
We get all our energy and organic molecules from food. Before we can use the molecules we eat, they have to enter our cells, starting with the cells lining the small intestine. Let's zoom in to the surface of a cell. The plasma membrane is selectively permeable. Some molecules can move across it, while others cannot. Lipids, such as these yellow molecules, can dissolve in the lipid bilayer. Notice how they move down their concentration gradient, from where they are more concentrated to where they are less concentrated. This is an example of diffusion. Diffusion is a form of passive transport. It does not require energy from the cell. Most molecules can't cross the lipid bilayer. Here, the sugar fructose moves into intestinal cells by facilitated diffusion, moving down its concentration gradient through a transport protein. Facilitated diffusion doesn't require energy from the cell, so it's also a form of passive transport. Water crosses the plasma membrane by facilitated diffusion, or by diffusing across the lipid bilayer directly. The diffusion of water across a membrane is called osmosis. The sodium-potassium pump moves ions against their concentration gradient, from where they are less concentrated to where they are more concentrated. This requires energy from the cell and is known as active transport. Energy from ATP is used to move sodium ions out of the cell and potassium ions in. Another type of active transport is co-transport. Here, both sodium ions and glucose move into the cell through a co-transporter protein. Sodium ions move down the concentration gradient created by the sodium-potassium pump, and glucose moves against its concentration gradient.
Okay. So our fats, when the fats are being absorbed, they're going to be transported to the lymphatic system. That's a little bit different than our other macromolecules. Those fat molecules are coated with bile salts, and they're emulsified into these droplets within the lumen of the small intestine, and lipases are going to break them into monoglycerides and fatty acids. The monoglycerides and the fatty acids are going to be transported to the epithelium in the small intestine. Then once they're inside the cell, phospholipids, cholesterols, and proteins are bound, making a chylomicron. That is a chylomicron. That is water soluble. That can go to the lymphatic capillaries called lacteals. And from there it can go to the veins and then to the body. After water has been removed, waste is going to become more solid. And so the big responsibility of the colon is to absorb water from all of our digestion. After that water is reabsorbed, in the what's left behind is feces, and that is what is the waste. That is what will be excreted. So here's all our small intestines, and now we've made it to our large intestine. Here within the large intestine, you can see we have an appendix, and then we have a cecum. The cecum in people is smaller than it is in a lot of other animals, and then it's going to travel to the colon. Peristalsis is going to keep food moving through, or it's going to keep feces moving through the colon. It's going to take about 24 hours, maybe 12 to 24 hours for food to travel through the large intestines. However, if you have something like an infection, or you've eaten something spicy, or maybe you've drank some alcohol, that can make the feces move more quickly through the intestines. Moving more quickly means there is less chance to have water reabsorbed, and that results in diarrhea. The opposite, if feces is moving more slowly through the intestines, you end up with an excess of water absorption. So the feces will now be more compact, more hardened, and result in constipation. Okay, my favorite thing here are bacteria. Bacteria are about a third of the dry mass of feces. They're a big component of our large intestine. They do important things like producing beneficial nutrients and vitamins. A lot of the vitamin K that you have in your body is because of the E. coli in your intestines. We can measure if there has been fecal pollution of a water area by measuring how much E. coli is there. So that's how much bacteria are engaged with our intestines. They also produce gases through their metabolism, which is what produces flatus or flatulence. These bacteria are really important in other things too. They are helping to train your immune system to help it learn to fight against dangerous bacteria and protect you against those bacteria are helping to protect you against an autoimmune disease. They can be sending signals to your brain and affect your mental health. They can also affect what kind of food cravings you have. So what you are eating is going to impact what bacteria are growing. And then in turn, they're going to try to get you to eat food that will feed them and send those messages to your brain. So changing your dietary habits can actually change the can change the bacteria within your colon, which then can impact what you are craving in the future, how your mental health is, how your autoimmune health is, your ability to produce vitamins. A lot of health is impacted by all of these bacteria growing within your large intestine. Then the rectum is the terminal end of the large intestine. That means the finishing final end. This is where feces are stored until they are eliminated. And between the rectum and the anus, there are two sphincters. The inner one is involuntary and the outer one is voluntary. So you're able to control this one when it opens to allow elimination to occur. There are strong waves of contractions in the colon that will create that urge to defecate. When this area is full, that will start creating the urge to defecate. Also, filling the stomach with food can increase the rate of contractions. So often just eating something, having food hit your stomach is enough to make a lot of people feel the urge to go defecate after that. So in summary, we have food goes into our mouth. Here are secretions from salivary glands mixed with the food. It starts chemical and mechanical digestion. Food travels through the esophagus to the stomach, where secretions from gastric juices are going to mix with the food and form chyme. It is going to go into the small intestines, where there are secretions from the pancreas, secretions from the liver. Food is being absorbed. Lipids are traveling to the lymphatic system, then through veins to the heart. Other absorbed food besides the lipids or sugars and proteins are going to travel to the hepatic portal vein, to the liver through veins, to the rest of your body, then to the large intestine where water is absorbed, then to the rectum and to the anus where the solid waste is eliminated. Okay, we're almost done with this chapter. We still need to talk about a few differences that we see in different animals based on different dietary needs and how our hormones control our need to eat or to feel full, and how hormones can affect our ability to digest food and regulate blood sugar levels. All right, if you have questions, let me know. I am here for you. Bye.